Demon Slayer is a show known for being an emotional roller coaster ride. So if you enjoy the drama, like me, I hope you enjoy this video where I detail 5 heartbreaking moments in the show. Warning, spoilers ahead. At number 5, we have Rengoku's death. As a fan favorite, Rengoku's death is one of the saddest moments in Demon Slayer history. Get your tissues. Kyojuro died in the Mugen Train arc after the team surprisingly met with upper rank 3 Akaza. After the two exchanged blows, and the upper rank offered to turn him into a demon multiple times, Rengoku understood that Akaza clearly had the upper hand in that fight. Kyojuro turned back to face Akaza, smiling, and says that he'd fulfill his duties before beginning to ready another attack. Impressed, Akaza compliments his fighting spirit and technique, and laughs as he says that Kyojuro really should have chosen to become a demon, having asked the Hashira to fight with him for all eternity. The two clash again, Rengoku using his flame-breathing 9th form. After the clash, the dust disperses to reveal that Akaza had stuck his arm through Kyojuro's stomach. Akaza yells at him that he's going to die, and asks Kyojuro one more time to become a demon. After a short flashback to the past, Kyojuro summons an immense amount of strength to try to pin Akaza in place while trying to decapitate him simultaneously. Akaza is incredibly impressed by Kyojuro's strength, then looks behind Kyojuro and begins to panic as he realizes that the sun is about to come up. Akaza tries to free himself from Kyojuro's hold, but the Hashira holds on tightly to his wrist, not letting him escape. Just as Inosuke tries to pierce Akaza, he manages to pull himself away from Kyojuro by severing both of his arms. The upper rank quickly jumps backwards, both of his arms severed, and runs into the forest besides where they'd been fighting, leaving Kyojuro to fall onto his knees, defeated. Kyojuro tells Tanjiro to live with his head held high, and that he shouldn't worry about him dying here, since it's only natural for a Hashira to give his life protecting his junior. He looks to Tanjiro, then to Inosuke and Zenitsu, and says that he believes in them, and that he thinks that they'd become the next generation of the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps. The Flame Hashira then sees the spirit of his mother in front of him, and asks her if he did well, to which she responds that he did a wonderful job. As the last seconds of his life slip away, Kyojuro smiles. At number 4, we have the Daki and Gyutaro backstory. A truly tragic backstory indeed. As ferocious as they are, you can't stop feeling sorry for these two siblings. Gyutaro was born into poverty within the lowest class of the entertainment district. His mother would often beat and try to kill him. Even before he was born, she had presumably attempted a miscarriage since she couldn't afford to feed him. But her efforts were proven to be in vain when she eventually died of syphilis. Throughout his childhood, he was berated for his appearance, voice, and poor hygiene from the other residents of the district. When his sister, Ume, was born, he gained a sense of pride and acted as her collector within the district. After Daki turned 13, he returned home from work one day, only to discover his sister tied up and burned near death and left to die in a ditch because she had stabbed a samurai's eye with a hairpin. He jumped into the ditch and began to panic, tearfully demanding that his sister be turned back to normal while cradling her body. As he embraced his dying sister, the same samurai who she had blinded appeared, snuck up behind him, and slashed his back in an attempt to kill him. He then overheard the samurai speaking to the brothel manager, who is revealed to be the one who had asked to have Gyutaro killed. However, before the samurai is able to finish him off, he manages to jump out of the ditch and kill both the manager and samurai with his sickle. Despite being injured, Gyutaro carried his sister Ume's dying body throughout the Hanamachi district in search for help, but was ultimately hit with the hard and cruel truth that there was simply no one who would aid them, no matter where he went. He eventually succumbs to exhaustion, both he and Ume on the verge of death. Before the end, they were found by the then upper rank 6th Doma, who was searching the entertainment district to devour the young woman in the area. He then offered to help them by turning them into demons, due to him being a nice guy. He gave them a few drops of his blood to initiate their transformations. He then gleefully challenged them to become powerful enough to be chosen by Muzan and join the 12 Kizuki themselves. At number 3, we have Inosuke's backstory. Love him or hate him, Inosuke is a very interesting character in Demon Slayer, and his backstory is pretty sad as well. Inosuke was raised by boars for most of his life before the final selection. It was later revealed that he was born into a family with an abusive father and escaped from his father with his mother. Afterwards, Inosuke, who was still an infant at the time, and his mother were taken in by Doma into his Paradise Faith cult. His mother Kotoha loved to sing to Inosuke, but would apparently change the song lyrics each time. However, after finding out that Doma ate his worshippers, Kotoha fled with their son. Running aimlessly for a human village, Kotoha eventually ended up at the top of a cliff. Seeing no escape route, she made a last-ditch effort to save Inosuke by dropping him into the river below the cliff. She was then devoured by Doma. Later on, Inosuke was discovered and raised by boars. At number 2, we have Sanemi's backstory and his secret love towards his brother. Sanemi was the eldest son of 7 children and lived with both of his parents. Their father was abusive, constantly lashing out at the children and their mother, until one day his father was stabbed and killed by someone with a grudge against him. Afterwards, Sanemi and Genya resolved to support their mother and family. One day, Sanemi's mother failed to return home, so Sanemi left to search for her. At some point, he found her and realized that she had become a demon, but couldn't stop her from returning home and killing 5 of his siblings. However, just before she could kill Genya, Sanemi tackled her through the window to the street below with a knife in hand. In the ensuing fight, she gave him 2 large scars across his face, and his Marechi blood, which disorients demons and makes them act intoxicated, gave him an opening to cut her down. When Genya ran into the street to find a doctor for his grievously injured siblings, he found Sanemi with their mother lying dead at his feet. Panicking and not knowing that the wolf that attacked them was actually their demonified mother, Genya screams and accuses Sanemi of murdering her. Sanemi, still in shock, became partially colorblind as their mother dissolved in the sunlight. After that, Sanemi abandoned Genya and began to hunt demons on his own with suicidal devotion. Without knowledge of demon slayers or Nichiren swords, Sanemi instead armed himself with a multitude of weapons and fought demons at night, incapacitating them and capturing them until daybreak, then stringing them up to let the morning sun kill them. Despite this crude and reckless battle style, he managed to survive thanks to sheer luck and the unique aroma of his blood. During one of the few breaks in the Hashira training arc, Tanjiro walks in on Genya attempting to speak with his brother, but Sanemi angrily rebukes him by saying that he has no brother and to stop bothering him, or else he would shred him into pieces. However, he continues and says that Genya should leave the Corps as he's unable to use breathing techniques, but his brother walks off. Genya is devastated at his brother's words and calls out to him, saying that he had always wanted to apologize to him, but Sanemi brushes his words aside, telling him to leave. He reveals that he overcame his lack of breathing techniques by eating demons to fight. Sanemi is shocked and turns around, attempting to plunge his fingers into his brother's eyes, but Genya is saved by Tanjiro's intervention, who tackles him out of harm's way in the nick of time. Yelling at the Hashira's unseemly behavior towards his brother and a fellow member of the Corps, Tanjiro asks if he's trying to kill Genya, to which Sanemi responds that it would be against the code of the Corps, and hence he was just aiming to leave his brother incapable of regenerating, so that he would be forced to leave the Corps. Tanjiro obviously objects to this, saying that Sanemi had no right to do such things to his brother. He gets into a fight with the Hashira, which devolves into a large brawl, and all of the trainees attempt to stop Sanemi's rampage. This continues until the evening, and Tanjiro receives a scolding from the higher-ups, in addition to being banned from approaching Sanemi. He now had to train with Gyome Himejima instead. It was later revealed that Sanemi loved his brother very much, and only wanted him to live in peace, grow old and die with a normal family. He said that he would have protected his family, and would never have let any demon approach them. Sadly, his little brother died in the battle against Kokushibo. At number 1, we have YORIICHI'S backstory. The legendary Demon Slayer is a title some of you were maybe eager to hold, but with such power comes a lot of hardships. Notice we didn't say responsibility. YORIICHI was born with godlike powers, but all he wanted was to have a peaceful life with his wife and children, a dream he never managed to fulfill. When his mother passed away from her illness, YORIICHI went to Michikatsu's room at night to tell his brother the news and bid farewell, planning to leave for the temple that night. He expressed gratitude towards his brother, stating that he would always keep him in mind. He fondly tucked away the flute Michikatsu had made for him earlier and left. YORIICHI ran away from the house and didn't stop. After running straight for 1 day and 1 night without any sign of exhaustion into the mountains, YORIICHI met a girl around the same age as him named Uta, whose entire family had died. Yoriichi chose to live with her, and after 10 years, Uta and Yoriichi had married, the former becoming pregnant later. Just before the expected arrival, Yoriichi left home to summon a midwife, promising his wife to be back before the sun set. On his way, Yoriichi helped an old man and lost so much time that he decided to return home and summon a midwife the next day. However, by then, the sun had already set. When he finally returned home, he found that Uta and the unborn child were killed by a demon. The tragedy shocked Yoriichi so much that he held her corpse in his arms for 10 days straight and only buried them after a pursuing demon slayer encouraged him to do so. This led Yoriichi to pick up his blade again and train as a demon slayer. Soon, Yoriichi countered Muzan Kibutsuji, the progenitor demon and mortal enemy of the demon slayers, accompanied by Tamayo. Upon meeting him, Yoriichi felt his rampant malicious intent, likening it to boiling magma from a volcano ready to consume everything. It was then that he reasoned he was born with the skills and talent to defeat Muzan once and for all. Muzan then stated that he had lost interest in swordsmen who employed breathing techniques and performed a long sweep of his arms to try to outright kill Yoriichi. However, Yoriichi dodged them, but instantly realized that any one of those attacks would be fatal and felt fear for the first time. Seeing into the transparent world, Yoriichi discerned that Muzan had 7 hearts and 5 brains that changed position within his body. Seeing his chance, he combined all of his forms into a single attack, cutting through them all and overpowering Muzan completely. Muzan was left in disbelief at his inability to regenerate while struggling to keep his head attached. Yoriichi asked him what he felt the value of life was, but didn't receive an answer. He turned to Tamayo, but was surprised to see her looking at her master's dismembered body with a hopeful gleam in her eyes. Moving to kill him once and for all, Yoriichi instead heard the sound of teeth cracking as Muzan's body burst into hundreds of small pieces. Caught off guard, he was only able to destroy 1,500 of the 1,800 pieces, leaving the rest to escape for Muzan to regenerate again. However, in spite of Yoriichi's failure to kill him, Muzan never forgot the encounter and remained fearful of Yoriichi for the rest of his life. After his banishment, Yoriichi decided he had much on his mind and wanted someone to talk to. He could only picture his friends Sumiyoshi and Suyako and decided to visit them. He met Sumiyoshi, sat down with him, and told him his entire story, from the beginning to his banishment from the Demon Slayers. Reminded of his tragedies, and speaking of his regret at letting Muzan live and the countless deaths that would follow, Yoriichi grew despondent. Sumire arrives at that moment to ask for a hug. At Sumiyoshi's request, he lifts her up, making her laugh and squeal with joy, causing him to break down in tears and embrace her. Suyako arrives shortly after to comfort him and treat Yoriichi to a meal and cheer him up. While with the Kamados, Yoriichi would be asked by Suyako to perform the sun-breathing forms. He kindly did so, performing all the moves with such grace he was likened more to a spirit than a human. Sumiyoshi would watch these demonstrations intensely and keep them in his memories. On his last visit, despite being told he was welcome at any time, Yoriichi gave Sumiyoshi his Hanafuda earrings. Sumiyoshi and Suyako realized that this was going to be the last time he would visit. Overcome with emotion, Sumiyoshi called out to Yoriichi as he walked away, telling him to stop saying that he was a man of no worth. He reminded him that he had saved them and promised to preserve the sun-breathing's forms throughout his descendants. Hearing this, Yoriichi turns and smiles brightly, thanking the Kamados and waving them farewell. Despite being banished from the core, Yoriichi would continue hunting demons independently, but still kept in touch with the Hashira he befriended with silent permission from the Oyakata. Meanwhile, the core itself fell into disarray. Muzan killed every other sunbreather, and no one could teach breathing styles as well as Yoriichi. Despite the apparently limited lifespan of 25 years suffered by those who bore the Demon Slayer mark, Yoriichi lived into his 80s, but eventually went blind. On the last day of his life, he would personally confront his brother Michikatsu, now known as Kokushibo and Muzan's strongest lieutenant, as Upper Rank 1. Devastated at what his brother had become, he cried, and Kokushibo could only show disgust that his younger brother was old but still alive despite having the mark. In spite of his love for him, Yoriichi knew he had to kill his brother and prepared to strike. Kokushibo's disgust turned to fear upon seeing that Yoriichi was still the same capable and powerful warrior from before. Yoriichi told his brother when he was going to attack and soon struck, slicing through his neck without Kokushibo even being able to draw his blade. Angered at being surpassed again, Kokushibo waited for the next attack. Unfortunately, it never came. Yoriichi passed away from old age, untouched. Angered that his one chance at a fair battle was gone, and that the man who nearly killed Muzan was now dead and undefeated forever, Kokushibo struck at his brother's corpse in scorn, only to realize that Yoriichi still carried the flute he had gifted to him when they were still both children. Unable to sever his connection with Yoriichi, Kokushibo took the split flute and carried it with him.